Good afternoon, Gossip Talk Show's family. Is Nomsa here at Gossip Talk Show's Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. With me today, I'm with Amanda Marie. How are you, Amanda?
I'm really good. How are you today?
Good,
Excited
good.
to be here
Thank you. What's the time in Canada now?
at 6 a.m.
Uh, uh, Here is 8 minutes past one. It's in the afternoon. Sorry, I have to wake you up. So, our topic today is how to deal with the rejection types, coping tips. Rejection is an universal experience that can be challenging to cope with, whether it's in a relationship, career, or personal ambitions. But understanding the types of rejection and learning how to deal with it effectively can help mitigate its emotional impact and foster resilience. Amanda, what do you think about the topic?
I think this is a really good topic because so often we talk about like how to get over a breakup or how to deal with conflict or how to work on like mindfulness in yourself and like heal different aspects of your life. But so often we like don't talk about those like feelings of rejection and that piece that goes with that, right? Of how to cope with things when you're rejected either in relationship or in like the workplace or even like with family members. There's definitely different areas like rejection. I automatically instantly thought of like relationship rejection, but then I was like, as I was thinking more about the topic, there's definitely multiple areas where you could feel rejected in. And even if you were trying out for a sports team, if you were a child, right? And so there's like multiple points that you can feel rejected in. I know even like children probably on a regular basis have this more often because I'm a teacher too, right? Like if you're playing soccer at recess and then you do that, like, I'm going to pick this team and I'm going to pick this team, and people pick until they get to the last two. Those last two like feel pretty rejected, right? Because they're the like last ones to get picked for the team. And so that's like a little bit of rejection that we like don't even sometimes think about, that we probably at some point in time had happened to us, or maybe you were the all-star of the team and you always got to be the one that got to pick, but then maybe didn't have empathy for the people who were the last to be picked. And so I think sometimes we really need to like think about those things and think about how we can uplift ourselves, but also like support others when they're having feelings like that.
I like it, Amanda, when you say sometimes the rejection comes in multiple different ways. Because sometimes when somebody talks about rejection, like what you're saying, automatically it goes to intimacy relationship, but the rejection actually it is everywhere. It can be your career, it can be family rejection, or it could be friends rejection. It could be anything. So yesterday when I was, or how I chose this topic, I was thinking about something. I'm sitting down and I was like, actually it is a rejection. There's some things that are happening in my life, but I wasn't looking at them as a rejection. So I was like, it is a rejection. But because sometimes I care about these people and then I move away from them, but because there's part of me that love them, that accept them, and then I'm leaving the part of me behind, and that it gives me unsettling feelings. So I was like, it's actually rejection. So I need to work on the healing. So when I worked on the healing last night, it felt so much better. And I was like, why do I always think that intimacy is just rejection? You know, like when you go for a job application, you can easily say, oh, I've been rejected. But there's some really small things like you were talking about, Amanda, areas where we get rejected, but the feeling inside of us, it tells us, it makes us, we feel it, but we ignored it because we don't know how to translate that feeling. So thank you so much for highlighting that. Um, So I know you work with children a lot. So what do you do when a child feels rejected? Do they come and confide in you, or do you just pick on it, or do you just how does it work?
Well, it really depends on the child. Like different children will approach it in different ways, just like different adults will approach rejection in different ways. Some kids will never know that they felt rejected, right? Because they won't tell me as their teacher, but they might go home and tell their parents, or they might tell a friend, or they might just keep it inside and keep that buried. And then when you are an adult, having the realization that when you were the last to be picked on the sports field or for a specific thing, that you're like, oh, I did really feel rejected at those points in times, and I didn't even understand what those feelings were, how I was feeling. And sometimes I think a lot of us suppress our feelings a whole bunch when we are going through different things, and that we allow our brains to tell us something different about what happened and how things came to be, because I think sometimes we like don't want to deal with any feelings of rejection because that brings up like shame and guilt and the feelings of unworthiness. And if you read any of Brene Brown's stuff, she talks a whole bunch about shame and how shame can drive how we behave in a lot of ways. And I think that's something that's really important to recognize, is if you're feeling rejected, is it bringing up feelings of shame? And then when those feelings of shame are brought up, how do we cope? What is it that we're doing? Are we reacting? Are we internalizing? Or are we being like proactive in that situation? And so yeah, rejection can be such, there's like such a vast array of where it can stem from. And I think for adults, a lot of us will think of it from the intimate relationships, and intimate relationships are the like kind of like a pillar of how we identify in lots of ways in and how we show up, because that is the thing that makes us the most vulnerable, right? And our intimate relationships really do have so much power over us in a lot of ways, because when we open our hearts and can be vulnerable, we also are opening our hearts to the possibility of rejection, which or even like heartbreak, right? And so lots of it, I think, too, stems from our childhood and how we are brought up and how we're like almost like wired for certain behaviors. And that's something that I've been reading a whole bunch about and working on with myself, is how can I heal my like childhood wounds so that I can show up in relationship better, and that I can deal with rejection better, and that I can have coping skills for different things. Because even like I remember when I was applying for my master's degree, I was like so worried that I would like get rejected, right? Like that I would get rejected and that I wouldn't get in, that I wasn't smart enough. All of those things pop into your head, right? Of like, what if I don't get in? That means that means this about me, right? But then you look at people who are really resilient and who can deal with rejection. Like you look at J.K. Rowling and how many rejection letters she got before she finally got a publishing deal. And now she's like one of the most well-known authors in the world. And yet she had to deal with so much rejection leading up to when somebody actually was willing to open the door and say yes. And so I think when we are resilient to rejection, like J.K. Rowling was, then we keep showing up and we're like, okay, that didn't work. We'll pick ourselves back up and try again, pick ourselves back up and try again. And when you're willing to keep picking yourself up and trying again, that's when you really are showing like resilience to rejection. And it's a coping skill, right? Because if you just like turtle yourself and whenever some sort of rejection comes up, it's not really a healthy way to be in life. And I think any entrepreneur would know what it's like to deal with rejection in the workplace too, because of whatever their business was. Maybe something failed, and then they have those feelings of like, maybe I can't do this, maybe my business isn't working, maybe I'm not smart enough to do this job or capable enough to start my business. and those feelings pop up, right? And it's really which side of yourself you allow to feed your mind that determines how you're going to go. And if you allow those like shameful, guilt, unhealthy and unhappy feelings to like feed your brain, then that's the direction that you're going to go. But if you're like, no, I got this, that's just one rejection letter, I can go try this avenue, or I can pivot and try this, or I can pivot and try that, that's when you're going to like persevere, right? And so however you look at rejection, I think there's lots of ways to like pick ourselves back up and show up again as the best versions of ourselves, and learn along the way.
I like that, Amanda, when you say when we allow like when we open our hearts to allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, it means we are open up to rejection. And also you mentioned about the feelings of shame and the feelings of guilty. And when we feel all those feelings, I think it's very, very important, like yesterday when I was doing my healing, I was like, it's just I need to understand that I've got lots of love within me to go around, instead of looking at where I've been rejected and looking at where people don't want me. So I need to look at things in a different perspective, so I'll be able to take my soul with me and take my power with me, my strength, and also embrace my weaknesses, because it's not easy, guys. I know when I speak, somebody may say, oh, Nomsa, you make it sounds like it's very easy. I know personally that being rejected is not easy, but when friendship, when it happens through friendship, when it happens romantic, and even with family, when someone chooses not to wanting to be around you, it's just sometimes it can be really, really hurtful. But for me, yesterday, I came to an understanding that actually I shouldn't feel the way that I'm allowing myself to feel. I need to tell myself that there's plenty of joy, plenty of love for me to give out there. And this person, just because they have not allowed me to be with them, it does not mean that they are better than me or I've done something wrong. Everyone has a choice. They make their own decision. Like Amanda, you were saying that the minute you allow yourself to be vulnerable towards somebody, you have to know that when that rejection comes, I think rejection is mostly expectations. It's like if I believe that I have expectations on Amanda, and Amanda, she's with me for love. She's like, I'm with Nomsa because I love her. I think she's amazing. And for me, I'm with Amanda for different reasons. So then if I reject Amanda, because Amanda, she has this genuine love. So and then Amanda end up feeling, oh, Nomsa has rejected me. But the truth is, Nomsa never accepted you anyway. She had her own expectations. So I think that's where life, people, we go wrong by not really 100%, like Amanda says. If we allow ourselves to be vulnerable towards somebody, we have to be prepared as well and just be okay when that person shows us that they don't want us to be part of them, and just be okay and accept it, which is the hard part. How can you do that, Amanda? It's hard.
To be able to deal with the
to
rejection.
be okay with it when you
Well, I think it takes like various stages of learning to heal, right? And I think sometimes too, it's part of our healing journey is learning how to deal with rejection from either an intimate partner or whatever it is. It's part of being human, because as humans but also we have that like tribe mentality too, because and that drive for connection, because in the past, if you weren't part of the tribe, then your chances of survival were so much less, because you as an individual couldn't survive in like the tribal world, right? You needed everybody from the tribe to be able to survive and to flourish. And so we very much are wired for connection and almost avoid rejection at all costs. But now that and I think that's part of why in society we have so much depression and anxiety, is because we have been focused so much on individuality and what we can achieve as an individual versus being part of a community and showing up and being able to really focus on community and how we can accept each other versus how we can compete with each other and how we can collaborate with each other versus how we're not always focused on competition. And I think collaboration is something that's very, very powerful. And often sometimes people will take any look at, especially in a business perspective, as collaboration as the possible, like, oh, that feels scary because I'm supposed to be able to achieve this all on my own, and I can do this on my own. And really, sometimes we have to like disperse our expertise so that somebody that I can bounce off of the strengths of other people and then focus on my strengths and what I'm really good at. And often I think we're sometimes almost like trained out of that through school, because so much of schooling is like, what can you do on your own? And often we don't focus on those collaboration skills, but I think collaboration is something that really we should be focusing on in schools. And then when we're collaborating with others, we're not so focused on like being rejected by one individual, right? If you're rejected by like an entire group, that's something completely different. But I think too, when you have like multiple groups that you're part of, and so maybe you're like part of a soccer team and you're part of like an art club and you're part of something else, like this friend group that likes to hike or whatever, then you have multiple areas where you can like feel successful. So if you're rejected in one area, then you have other things to fall back on. And so if you think about yourself in like relationship with, say, a person, and all of a sudden they decide, like Noam's always saying, where you don't like the person anymore, or one of you is completely invested and the other person isn't, if that person doesn't have other avenues to like navigate, then that rejection from that person that you're so focused on is going to really hit you hard, right?
Yeah.
And you feel really lost and you're going to feel really alone. And I know for myself, if I've been focused on like one person individually, that heartache is really hard. I've always tried to find a really good balance between like showing up in relationship and making sure I'm spending time with friends and making sure I still am myself as an individual, but also part of this like partnership. And so navigating that is something that is really like a communication skill almost, right? Our ability to communicate how we can show up as our authentic selves in relationship, but also still include other parts of ourselves, so that if that relationship ends, we're not so completely devastated, right? Or feeling rejected by that. And people can show up at different times in their lives in different ways too, because of whatever has happened in their past, or just the situation that they're in right now. And so I really think at different times in people's life, somebody might show up differently. Like if you remember how you were at like 20, how you were showing up in relationship very differently than maybe you are now, right? And so in our 20s, we show up in relationship differently than we do in our 30s or our 40s. And I know now for myself that I probably would be the person that's like really like not guarded, but also very like I know what it is that I want, and I'm not willing to entertain other other like a situationship. I'm only willing to like
An option,
entertain
being an
something.
option.
Yeah, I'm only willing to entertain something that's like going to be really authentic and with somebody else that's really on a like journey of like self-discovery and healing. And if somebody's not on that same like level or like focus of their journey as a human, then they're not going to be right for me, and I'm not going to entertain dating somebody just because they're good looking or because they have a good job or something like that. I'm going to
Yeah.
only entertain somebody who's really in touch with who they are and how they show up in the world. And so in that way, like those people who might like look at me and be like, oh, person might be a good person to date, would feel rejected by me only because we're on very different journeys, right? And we're on very different areas of our lives. And so dealing with rejection, I think, is very different at different points in your life too, because of how it is that you're showing up, right? And so when we think about dealing with rejection, I almost like encourage people to ask themselves, how are you showing up? Right? How are you showing up in this, and what is it that you really are looking for? Because I had a friend the other day who had messaged me, and she was saying something about this guy that she'd been seeing on and off for a while, and how he was like stepping up and showing up, but then still wouldn't meet her kids. And it's been like a long time of like hanging out with this particular person. And then she like asked him flat out about like come and hang out and like just as a friend, show up as a friend, not even as my boyfriend. And the person like completely ignored it and like didn't even acknowledge what she had asked. And then a few days later was like, oh hey, how's your weekend? It's like that's a form of rejection, right? Like that person completely like didn't even acknowledge what she had asked them. And I was like, wow, that's something. That's
Because he knows the answer that she expects is not what the answer that he's gonna give. So
not
that's why.
even not even that. Like that's the answer I expected him to give just based on how he'd been showing up for a long time. I'm like, he's not even going to acknowledge this, and in like a week he's just going to be like, oh hey, how's your week? And completely like sweep under the rug the like authentic thing that you had asked that also like makes you a little bit vulnerable. And that's how he's showing up. So like when somebody shows up like that, like really recognize it and recognize what it is that you want. Because even though they weren't rejecting her specifically, like outright, they're still rejecting like their feelings and what's important to them. And so when you really connect with that, you're like, that's not the type of person I want to be with. I want to be with somebody that's going to show up for me authentically and be there when I need them and be able to have hard conversations with me and not just like completely ignore something important that I asked them and then just be like, oh hey, what's your weekend? It's just like mind-blowing sometimes how unattuned people are to to relationship and how they're showing up in it.
Yeah, I think it's important. It's a very, very important, Amanda, like you were saying, you mentioned that within the society, how we compete against each other, like we don't really support each other. It's all about, I want to be better than this person, I want to be better than this person. And we don't really value, we were talking about it with my friend this morning, that we don't, I was like, when it comes to relationship nowadays, people don't really value the actually what does a relationship mean when I want to enter intimacy, find love. What does love mean? Like Amanda, you mentioned that when now you know how you show up for yourself, you do loads of work, your inner work, and you are not really interested in that place where you will take a guy because they have a good job, they earn good money, or they are wealthy. You are not in that moment, in that place. You are in a place where you want something that aligns with what the person you are becoming, which is it shows that you know your identity. So you're not gonna settle for less. You're not gonna be an option to somebody just because they have money. You want them. I had an issue with this guy, I think it was 2 weeks ago. So this guy, he keeps chatting me up, he keeps ringing me. He took my number from my website. So I'm asking this guy, I'm like, you are a millionaire, you're saying you want to date me and things like that, but I didn't tell him that I'm in a relationship anyway. So I was like, I wanted to see where he's going. So I gave him some advice. I said, listen, when you approach a woman, leave money out of it. Because the moment you approach somebody, you want to buy them something, you say, I need to take you out, I need to spoil you. You are not asking them for a date. You're buying them. So I said, whether you have the money or you have this, if a relationship is what you want, have confidence, have that confidence and the courage to ask a woman out. And if that woman does not want you, let them speak for themselves, not you approaching them based on money, based on what you have. I was like, me, I need a heart. I need a true person, someone who's got a big heart. Just because I'm beautiful, it does not mean I'm right for you. So all these things you have to put it into consideration when you date somebody because of their looks, because of how much money they have. It doesn't work. In a long run, you have money and you'll be miserable. So it's good to have this person that aligns with the journey where you're going. Because in that way you have a good relationship, and also you said know what you want, and don't be an option in a relationship or settling for less. Because when you're settling for less, so this morning me and my friend were talking, we're like, people they are misunderstanding when somebody says, what do you bring to the table? They're using material of, this is what I bring to the table. Okay, if I have this material, the beautiful life, the everything, what if the mind is wrong? The mindset is wrong. So will I be able to have a relationship? It's like the screening has to go deep. Really, really deep. Before I go into relationship coaching, I used to be like, oh, he is a good guy. He drives a nice car. He'll look after me. I'm not going to suffer if I need food or I need anything. He's just going to get me whatever I want. But then I realized as the time went by that actually money is not everything. When I dated the guy that had everything, but then I was left miserable. And then I realized actually I need to sit down and ask myself, like, how am I showing up for myself? And how do I want my man to show up as well, show up for himself and show up for me? Meaning we have to be in the same, like, similar mindset, not competing. Like I had to get rid of this thing where I see my friend getting married and they have this life and I feel like, why am I not there? I just had to know that my life is with God, not with the competition. My eternity life, my unconditional love, it comes from God, not with my man or with anybody. And I think when it comes to rejection, if anyone that has ever felt rejected is like, what is wrong with me? Why do I feel? Why is it every place where I go, I feel rejected? It means you don't show up for yourself. Because if you show up for yourself, you will pick and choose where you show up. If Amanda says, come, let's hang out, you evaluate Amanda first and say, hey, hang on, Amanda, let's have a chat. Or Nomsa says, let's go out. And you'll be like, okay, Nomsa, I hear you, but I just want to understand what you're all about. And then you just ask questions and get to know me before you can give me your heart. So I think in that place, what do you think, Amanda?
I don't know what exact question you're asking. Can you
I
clarify?
mean, what do you think? Like when somebody like they are saying, why do I keep getting rejected? Like a same cycle by different people, but it seems like I'm in this one cycle where I feel like I'm in one place, like stagnation, because people keep rejecting me.
Mhm. I think sometimes it's almost even like the energy that we give off that we like unconsciously are showing up with, right? And if we've got childhood trauma or past relationship trauma or anything that's really like stuck inside ourselves, that really can affect how we show up in relationship, and how that we attract people that are vibrating at the same level as us. And so if we're like rejecting ourselves, then like internally, then other people are going to do the same, right? Because it's people show up as a mirror of what it is that we are showing up as. And so I think if I was getting rejected a whole bunch, I would really try to look at how it is that I'm showing up in the world, and like what it is that I'm rejecting about myself, and then how is it that I could go and heal those pieces of myself outside of relationship. And I have one friend who has been like dating like almost like obsessively. And I'm like, I've asked her, I'm like, have you ever just like decided not to date for an entire year? Like just don't date for a whole year. Just focus on yourself for 1 year, and not even like don't go on any dating apps. If somebody asks you out, just say like, no, I'm really focusing on me for a year. If you still want to talk to me in a year when this year's up, then like here's my number, right? But I'm going to just have like a me year and really focus on what it is that I need to show up as the best version of myself. And she didn't listen to me, which is fine. But that's something that I do for myself. Anytime that I end a relationship, or somebody ends a relationship with me, I give myself a year now. And it's because of something that happened in my past, where I broke up with somebody that I really, really cared about because they weren't showing up the way that I wanted them to show up. And I ended up getting into a relationship like really, really quickly after, and I didn't give myself the time to heal in between the two relationships. And that really haunted me for a really long time. And because then I ended up in like probably leaving one of the healthiest relationships of my life to ending up in the most unhealthy relationship of my life, from not giving myself time and space in between the two relationships. And I feel like if I had been strong enough, I would have never ended up in that unhealthy, horrible, toxic relationship that I still have to deal with now because I have a daughter with him. Um, and and if I had given myself that time to heal, I wouldn't have ever ended up with that toxic person. And I know for myself that looking back up based on all the healing that I've done over numerous years, like over 10 years now, that I wouldn't have attracted somebody like that if I had been the best version of myself, or I would have seen it very quickly and not been codependent with somebody who was so had such a like horrible energy to them, right? And so now when I end something, or if somebody ends something with me, it's really about like learning how to show up as the best version of myself, so I'm attracting a really good positive relationship. And I think sometimes too, when relationships end, it's not always like a negative thing. It can be like, I love you, but this isn't working out in relationship, and you're a wonderful person, but you're not the right person for me in this situation, right? I can't see us going long term, but that doesn't mean that you're not a good person. And I think sometimes we look at the end of relationships as like a failure, but sometimes it's like a success in in being able to recognize what it is that you're truly looking for and how you're showing up, and can you lovingly let go of something or someone that maybe isn't the best person for you relationship wise, but still is a really good person, right? I think sometimes we think of that rejection as like always negative, but it's not sometimes. Sometimes it can be really positive, and it can be like, I release you to go do exactly what it is that you want to do and how you want to show up, and so that our relationship isn't holding that back for you, right? So I think it's like reframing what rejection really is how I would show up with that. What do you think, Nomsa?
Yeah, I like it when you say reframe it, because even for me yesterday, I was like, I need to reframe how I see this thing as a rejection, and just reframe things and just work on myself. And also, I like it, Amanda, when you say like the approach of, if you see that is somebody, you're not compatible with somebody, because there are some people, they see that 100% that you're not compatible, but they crush you, make you feel that you are nobody, and nobody's gonna want you because they don't want you, and they trash you instead of saying, listen, I don't think we are compatible. They will find 20 reasons to make you really, really feel so bad. And and that really, really, really sometimes it can leave somebody's life with a scar. So I like the way you describe it, that just be polite if you feel that you're not compatible with someone, because not being compatible doesn't mean the other person they're bad. They're not. There are some people who are dealing with their own, battling their own demons, their own lives. So it does not mean that they are wrong. So you just have to be like, okay, this is not for me, and just live in peace and just let that person. But I know there are some people who have left their spouse that they've dated and just leave them trash and believing that they'll never find somebody else. And I listened to one of the testimonies online in my church, and this girl, she was wanted to get married. She was getting married on the day of her wedding. The guy came with the person that he was dating behind her back, and he said, I'm not marrying you, I'm marrying this person. And I was like, why did he even go to the place with this woman? Did this other person have to go? But the painful thing is, apparently she cried to the other girl and cried, and she wanted to take her own life, but she didn't in the end. And a year later, this guy and this girl, they got married, but they died in a car accident. So it shows that sometimes, like you are saying, Amanda, that sometimes a relationship ending or even a job ending, it can be a blessing, because when the job ends, you come up with those where you get creative. Some people, they go into grieving mode where they will start feeling sorry for themselves. But there are some people who be like, okay, this job is ended, but what can I do next? And then they start getting creative, and they even get a better job than what they had, or they even start something better that bring a better income as well. So you have to see, like if Amanda says, frame the word rejection, like even when you're coping with it, like just remove that energy and say, okay, this is how, like my circle, like myself now, I've decided that every person that enters my life, I need to feel the energy, what kind of energy they have, because I don't want the same energy, like a similar energy of rejection, and see whether their energy aligns with my energy, because you can feel it just by hanging out with somebody, and just your inner being. Sometimes we ignore our inner being, our instinct, but our instinct, they tell us exactly what this person is. And mostly Christian, the Holy Spirit will tell you that if this person is not good enough, they will tell you that no, this person is not a nice person. So I think that is really, really important. And Amanda, do you have, like, if somebody doesn't know how to show up like a best version of themselves, what advice can you give them? If someone will be like, Nomsa and Amanda, I hear you guys, but I don't know how to show up for myself.
I think that we can show up as the best version of ourselves differently each and every day, right? Like some days, if you wake up with a cold, maybe the best version of yourself is really just a self-care day, right? And really like, I just need to rest and take care of myself. Whereas other days it's like, okay, the best version of myself went to the gym before work, and then I went to work and I had the best day. And then it really is like showing up, right? And recognizing what it is that your body, your mind, and your spirit need in that moment. But also I think doing some things daily to work towards your goals. Like what is it that you have as a goal in your life, and how are you showing up, and what is it that you're doing each and every day or each week or each month to like take tiny steps towards those goals, right? And so if it's like a relationship that you want, maybe it is going to counseling. Maybe it's reading relationship books. Maybe it's reading some self-help books on how you're showing up and how your childhood traumas are affecting you. And because I think so many of us haven't done any of that work. I know for myself, there's very few people that I know that are really reading books and diving deep into how their childhood traumas are affecting them. And so I would really start with looking at how you can heal your own life. And one of the best books for that is a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. That would be where I would start. Or if it's like relationships that you want to focus on, then I would buy books on relationships. I actually just purchased one called Secure Love. And it's because this guy that I follow on Instagram, he's called Jimmy on Relationships, and he's freaking hilarious. If you don't follow him, you should follow him because he just like he puts a wig on and he talks about like all different things with relationships, and he like has this like ultra
What was
ego.
the name, Amanda?
He's called Jimmy on Relationships, I think. Let me just find it. Um yeah, Jimmy on Relationships. He's so funny, and he like puts so many things about relationships like out there, I laugh so hard at like where he's like like talks about avoidant partnerships or anxious partnerships, or he'll talk about like narcissism, and if a narcissist actually like showed up as their real selves on the first date, like what they would say. And he like goes back and forth between him with a wig on and him without, and he's so bang on. It's so funny. But that Secure Love book is one that he suggested in one of his like reels, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy that just because I think that's something that if I ever am in a relationship again with somebody, that I would hope that they would read the same book too, because I would want us to be on the same page with those things. And so if somebody's not willing to read, then they would have to deal with rejection from me, right? Because I'm like, no, if we're not on the same page about these things, then you're not going to be the right person for me. And so yeah, I really think that like
The
following
Jimmy knows.
uh I don't know. I can send it to you later. He's called Jimmy on Relationships. I'll show you here. This this is like
Oh,
some
yeah, that's him. He's Jimmy
yeah,
knows.
yeah, yeah, he's really good.
Ah,
He's really funny. He just like brings light to like all
why
of the
is he
things.
wearing a wig?
Pardon?
He's wearing a wig.
Oh yeah, you have to watch some of them. They're so funny. They're so funny. And it just brings like all the struggles of relationship to like light in a funny way. And you're like, "Oh my God, that was my marriage." That was my last relationship.
It's like how to start a fight. How can you start a fight?
Yeah. Oh, they're so funny. They're just and like he's just bang on with so many things, especially because of I know a lot about narcissism, and so like the stuff that he puts out about narcissists, I like pee myself laughing almost.
I have to watch him because I'm working on it. I've realized that I'm not being myself with the gossip talk shows. I've realized that I need to not find my identity. I need to bring out the real me. So I'm gonna watch him and see what he does.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
he's really good. He's just it's so funny. And that like that right? Like dealing with rejection, sometimes it can be like
It's, it's,
humor.
yeah, it's a blessing, honestly. I just laugh sometimes when I do something and then I'm like feeling angry about something. And then I look back a few days later, I'm like, what the heck is that all about? What am I doing? I could just be celebrating. I could be doing this. And like, um, it's just amazing. Last week we had a meeting with our coach and we're talking about embracing the no's. Like
Mhm.
whenever you feel rejected, you just embrace it and celebrate it. So there's this girl, she's taken this embracing nose to the next level. She's actually being Facebook ads. She's actually approaching customers and she does not care the rejection or then they say, oh, I don't want to work with you. She's just going for it. It's
That's
like,
so good.
yeah, I need to watch Jimmy, Amanda. So
Yeah,
see.
true. True. You'll get some good laughs out of it, but also like really important knowledge while laughing at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think we've lost that sense of humor in the society. Life, everything is so serious. We're making things like we're making life really hard and complicated and very, very serious. Even
Mhm.
love nowadays is getting complicated. We had this testimony. This man has been married with his wife. They've been married for 30 years. So he was saying, it's 30 years or 40 years wedding anniversary. And one of the pastors goes, because in my church we have lots of different pastors. So he stood up and he was like, where are you best, by the way? I'm sure you're not best in United Kingdom. And he was like, in Nigeria, he was like, because the UK love is getting tough nowadays to keep the marriage working. And he was like, it doesn't have to, though, because we're followers. We're following. When I say Amanda leading her own life, I just want to follow you. I want to, like the life that I just want to compete with you. But the truth is, I don't know what you had to go through to be where you are. So instead of me, maybe instead of someone asking, like, you'll find that relationship, there's so much pressure, the pressure that is not really necessary. Um, like there's so many like during lockdown and there were so many divorce and I think the numbers are not going down even now, they are going up because there's so expectations. When we go on social media, I'll see somebody putting pictures and we're like, why is my husband not like that? Why? But he's his own person. He does not like to take pictures. Instead of accepting it, then now I'll go and just annoy husband, get some ideas from Jimmy, and go and start the fight.
Well, actually, in that book on secure love, it said that 50% of people don't have like secure attachment styles or secure like attachment strategies. And so that's also like makes a lot of sense with why
Is it
50%
secure to love or secure love?
secure love is the book that I'm reading right now. And
Is it a good book?
yeah, it's good. But one of the things that I was like, oh, that makes so much sense why the 50% of people get divorced is if they don't have any of these strategies for a secure attachment, then of course they're going to just trigger their avoidant, anxious, or disorganized attachment styles and then ultimately end up in divorce because they don't have these skills. And I know for myself, I didn't have those skills. I didn't have any of those skills to have like secure attachment or even to have conversations around attachment and around why it is that like certain things are triggers, right?
Yeah.
So I think that if we're going to show up, then we need to be reading some things like that. And but also like that makes so much sense why 50% of of marriages fail, but it might be more than 50% now
I
since.
I think it's small. You know, like relationship nowadays is like you are saying, people they have their own. They don't have skills in relationship. Like I'll talk to my clients and I ask them the process, why are they single? And when they tell me stories, I'm like, you mean you were in that kind of a relationship? Are you a normal human being? They're like, yeah. I'm like, no, that does not sound normal.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's so painful to see what people they have to go put themselves in, and from the beginning when they enter that relationship, the signs are there, but because of not, like you are saying, if somebody hasn't got the skills and you date the wrong person. I was talking to the girls from Dating Diamonds. They're all different girls, but very educated, very, very smart, very successful. And they all have, when it comes to dating, they date the guys that they have to look after them financially. And that does not work.
Mhm.
And you have to look after somebody, you have to date somebody that you are in the same level. If you have to look after the person is either a housewife, that it comes to an agreement that you look after the children while parents go to work, I think that way is understandable. But even nowadays, it's just all about material. What kind of a car we driving? What kind of a house are we living in? If we are not living in the house next to our family, our neighbors, that means my husband is not good enough. So then I have to keep nagging him and keep nagging him because I don't have a relationship skills. I don't know why I'm in that relationship. So, and then it goes deep, the baggage.
No, but I know that you were saying that you have to
Oh
leave
yeah, it's 2 o'clock. Yeah. Do you have any words of encouragement, Amanda? Before we go,
Um,
I've got to go. Yeah.
yeah, if feelings of rejection are popping up for you, I want you to really notice where it is showing up in your body and how that is making you feel. And then think about what is it that will help you not um like get stuck, get
Yeah.
stuck in those feelings. And so then how can you show up so that you're going to be the best version of yourself? And if you're having those feelings of rejection, the best version of yourself that day might just be to cry a bunch, and that's okay. Right? But then pick yourself up and be willing to use the community that you have around you to support yourself into building your strength so that you can again show up as the best version of yourself, so that you have tools so that when you face rejection again in any area of your life, you have things that are going to help support you to pick yourself up and be strong.
Yeah. For me, guys, I would just say rejection as a blessing. Don't see it as like I I know it's painful to be rejected, but no, it's a normal part of our lives, and often it's a stepping stone towards growth. So for me, when somebody rejects me, I have to look at Jesus. He is the creator of the earth, but he was rejected himself. So who am I to accept it, to expect everybody to like me, to want to be with me? So that's how actually it helps me to be able to cope and tell myself that no, I need to go on. Just because this person has rejected me, let me go extra mile to love them so I can take my soul with me and get to where I need to be when it comes to life and be with the people that loves me. Even if it means having one friend, guys, it's enough. As long as that person loves you from the bottom of their heart. that's enough. And if you're watching us from YouTube, please, guys, subscribe. Any other channels, subscribe and follow us. We have 2 groups, Unique Billionaire Mindset and Gossip Talk Shows. Please do join those groups. And on Facebook is www.hseia.coach. Please do sign up, and I'll see you guys on the other side. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless.